I am the founder of Banish. My name is Daisy. I started this company back in 2013. I'm going to go through the questions I'm going to answer. These are most frequently asked questions. What is microneedling? How does the banisher work? Is it safe? Who should avoid microneedling? What risks should be considered? Does microneedling hurt? And how long does recovery take? How do you prevent scarring and infection when microneedling? What results can banisher realistically deliver and for which skin concerns? How many sessions are needed to see results? Are the results permanent? Can you microneedle active acne, sensitive skin, darker skin tones during pregnancies? What are the most common mistakes to avoid? And how does the banisher differ from lasers, chemical peels, and RF microneedling? And again, a little bit of background about me if you don't know. I have suffered with every kind of skin condition you can think of, but I especially developed a lot of cystic acne when I was in the 3rd grade. And I tried everything for my skin. I went to so many different dermatologists. I tried every single product under the sun for acne, and it did not help my acne. In fact, it made it worse. So back then, the rhetoric with acne was, dry out the skin as much as possible, bleach the skin as much as possible, put the most antibiotics, take the most antibiotics. And that, in fact, would damage my skin barrier. It actually made my skin worse. So I would break out worse. And it was just this really, really nasty cycle. So, I spent so much of my life trying to fix my skin. And when you would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I didn't really know anything else except skincare and having acne. So I said, okay, I want to be a dermatologist. So I went to Duke University to study pre-med, and I took all of the, classes that you would need to take in order to go to that route. But while I was in my dorm room, I actually started reviewing different beauty products and skincare products, and they're still on the internet in your free time if you want to browse through those. But, I was publishing them in 2009. I went through every single product. I went through the ingredient list. And soon I realized that a lot of the products that I was putting on my face, a lot of the products that were marketed towards me, simply had a lot of filler ingredients. Companies would, add a lot of fragrance to the products. They would add a lot of coloring to the products. A lot of money was being spent on the packaging of the products, but it didn't actually do anything to the skin. In fact, all of those ingredients were unnecessary and would make someone like me with very sensitive skin tend to break out. So during this time, I actually started creating my own products. I actually went to different conferences and actually bought the actual raw ingredient of the product. I would mix it myself, make it myself, put it on my skin. And for the first time after doing that, people were saying that my skin looked great. My acne started to go away. But one thing I didn't realize was I was left with a ton of scarring. So I soon realized I have the type of skin where every single pimple leaves a scar. So anything on my face will leave a scar, and I was left with a ton of scarring, and I was devastated because I was like, well, I solved the problem with my acne, but now I have to solve this problem with acne scarring. So I saved up $3,000 because I thought getting laser was going to be the end all treatment to getting rid of the scarring on my face. And when I went to a family friend plastic surgeon to get the laser treatment done, he basically said that he didn't think it was going to work for my skin type, that I was going to develop more scarring. I was going to develop more pigmentation issues, post-inflammatory pigmentation issues. And he actually said, you know what? I actually recommend something called microneedling using a vitamin C on top. And I think you're going to see really great results with that. And what was funny was I actually heard about microneedling. People would comment on my videos about it, but I did not want to do it because I was like, this is a medieval torture device. I'm not putting needles on my face. No way, Jose. But I was so desperate to find a solution. And because this was someone who was trusted in my circle, took his advice and didn't really think too much of it. But I started getting very positive feedback on my YouTube channel about my skin. And they were asking, okay, what happened to your acne scars? Like, what are you using? Daisy put the link. Where are you buying it? And then people in real life, for the first time in my life, started giving me positive comments about my skin. So I knew of all the things that I've used, all the things that I've done, this was the best thing that had happened to my skin. And people wanted to buy it. And I realized back then, this was in 2012, okay, over, my gosh, 14 years ago. 14 years ago, there was no like at-home microneedling like solution. Like it was kind of like nobody really knew about it. So I created the first Banish kit, or the at-home microneedling kit. And this was the first version. Obviously, she's a lot prettier now, but it was very important to me because this worked so well for me. I wanted to help other people, and I wanted to create a product that was safe, affordable, and effective, right? Because safety is really important. Giving good instruction is very important, but also creating the best device is most important to me. So you can see through these 13 years, there's been so many iterations, right? We started with the derma rollers, we had different versions of the derma rollers, and then we had a stamper device with the self-cleaning cap. And then last year we launched the replacement heads, and we're also working on other things. So it's really important to me to create the best device out there. And from there, won a few awards, like from Forbes 30 under 30 in the manufacturing industry. I spoke about my story of having acne and feeling so ashamed of, who I was because of that in my TEDx talk. It's called A Tragedy Called Perfection. Won Inc. 500 fastest growing companies, and we had a billboard in the most like trafficked area in West Hollywood. So that was really exciting. But what I'm most proud of is, and my mission for Banish is to make every single one of you feel confident in your skin. Because as someone who has struggled with my skin for most of my life, I felt like I always needed to hide because I never felt like, I could be good enough because my skin was always an issue. So my mission is to make you guys feel confident in your skin, and we host community events across the country because that is ultimately Banish's mission. So from my experience of running this business for 13 years and having, skin issues myself, these are the 5 Banish principles methodology on skincare. Okay. So number 1, we are always evidence-based. So the products, every single product we develop is based on scientific and published studies. Okay. So again, microneedling we're one of the first brands to really develop microneedling. There's so much science and studies behind microneedling even before 2012. And so I knew that it wasn't just like me who saw the results, like it was actually, published studies of the benefits of microneedling, right? Number 2, we do not believe in traumatizing the skin or creating shock factor just because it looks cool on social media. I know, people want to see a lot of trauma on the face. They think that like it'll give you more and better results. And I'll actually explain to you why it can give you worse results. But, in this day and age, like the visual effect is really, really clickbaity, but we don't, do it just because it like appears cool on social media, right? Number 3 is we take a long-term approach to skincare. So we don't follow trends or gimmicks. So I don't understand why skincare should be a trend, right? Like it should work or it doesn't work. Like we don't need to incorporate every single beauty trend out there. Number 4, we don't add bells or whistles just because it looks cool. So if you can see our products, they're not bright pink. They're not glittery. We don't add fragrance to it. If it doesn't actually have a benefit, we don't put it in. So every single ingredient, all of our formulations, there's a reason why that ingredient is in there. And, our packaging is very, very simple because we really focus on, the actual products and the ingredients and how it works on your skin. And number 5 is we believe the best skincare outcome is for you to feel confident in your skin. As someone who has suffered with major skin issues, I know what it feels like to try a million different products and not have it work. And, if anything, it's not about having the most perfect skin. It's about you feeling good enough in your skin to be able to not hide from the rest of the world. Okay. So how does microneedling work? The Banisher work, and is it safe? So microneedling has been known as collagen induction therapy. And basically what it does is it has these tiny little needles and it pricks into your skin, and your skin interprets that as a wound. So it builds collagen and elastin fibers underneath. So anytime we get a cut, or we have surgery or whatever, our skin naturally heals itself. So the trick with microneedling is doing that in the skin without creating any further scarring. And that's very, very important. I'll get to that later. So this process triggers the body's natural, wound healing cascade. Okay, so for the Banisher, the reason why I developed the Banisher the way it is because I wanted the thinnest gold-plated needles out there, okay? And so when you are looking for microneedling devices, I highly recommend thin gold-plated needles because if you're like me, I scar, everything will leave a scar on my skin, okay? And a lot of the other devices out there, they're made with a much thicker stainless steel needle, okay? And you can even see in the comparison here, zoomed in, like how much thicker those needles are. And again, if you're like me and I'm prone to scarring, I have permanent scars from using the other devices because the needles are too thick. So you really want to be careful of that. So we have the thinnest needles out there on the market. They're also gold plated. Gold is really antimicrobial. It's also hypoallergenic. So very few people are allergic to 24 karat gold, and it has less drag. So our needles are actually finer than a human hair. All right. So this is why, I developed Banish in this way. And then is microneedling safe? Of course it can be safe, but with anything, if you do it wrong, like there could be risks, right? So number one, microneedling is only as safe as number one, the device you're using. So you want to use a good device and also whoever is doing it on you, right? The technician. So if you're going to get it professionally done, you don't want to go to a technician who doesn't know what they're doing, who is too aggressive. You want someone with a lot of experience. And also, it's only as good as the aftercare and the products you put on. Okay, so you want to make sure, number one, you're using a good device. Number two, you or whoever's doing it knows what they're doing. And number three, you're using the right products afterwards. Who should avoid microneedling and what risks should be considered? So who should avoid microneedling? If you have active acne, it depends. If your whole face has acne, I would wait for your acne to heal up. But if it's just one or two pimples, I designed the Banisher so that way, you can stamp around the active acne. Because if you're like me, there's always some active acne going on, right? So just going around the pimple. You don't want to microneedle right after you do a chemical peel or a laser treatment, right? You want to wait for your skin barrier to heal up. Again, if you have any infections, a cold sore, like do not microneedle over that. If you are pregnant, you can microneedle. If you're nursing, you can microneedle, but do not use numbing cream and just be careful of the aftercare products you use. Make sure they are pregnancy safe. And if you are on Accutane, ask your doctor because Accutane does thin the skin barrier a lot. So the recovery might be different. So ask your doctor about Accutane. And what are the risks, okay, of microneedling? So I would say, one of the biggest risks is using the wrong device. Again, a lot of people think the more traumatic, the better. And that is not the case, especially if you have skin like me, that whatever you do to it, it's going to like freak out, right? So a lot of people, if you go on Reddit, on different forums, they got professional microneedling done. And because they use numbing cream, so a lot of these places will put numbing cream on you, right? And people think numbing cream is really good, but the downside of numbing cream is there's no feedback mechanism. So you're not going to get red. You're not going to bleed. You're not going to do all that because your skin is numb. So the technician can go way too harsh on the skin, not knowing it's literally tearing your skin apart. So you can see in that photo, like that's what happened, right? Like they didn't know until many hours after, once the numbing cream wears off, they're like, what happened to my skin? And you can develop permanent scarring, right? If the tear is too traumatic, if it's too much, it's going to develop permanent scarring on the skin. And also using poor skincare products afterwards, like if you're using, adulterated serums or, just not high quality skincare or skincare formulated for use after microneedling, it can develop, you could develop bad reactions to it. And then also, you want to avoid sun exposure. So make sure, you stay out of the sun the day after you microneedle, the day of and day after you microneedle. If you're going to go out, wear a hat. I always prefer a mineral-based sunscreen on top. And then, it's not really the day to like do the heavy full face of makeup. So you just want your skin to relax. Okay, does microneedling hurt and how long does recovery take? So microneedling, it obviously depends on the device you use. So I developed the Banisher with 77 gold-plated needles because have you heard of like people can walk on a bed of nails, right? Because when they're placed a little bit closer together, it is a lot less painful than having them very far apart. But to me, with the banisher, it feels like metal Velcro on your skin. If you're going to use a motorized device, most likely they will put numbing cream on there, okay? And those will hurt significantly more because they're literally like swirling it around your skin. And then how long does recovery take? I would say for Banish, downtime is, a good night of sleep. You might be a little bit pink the next day. If you do professional, it will take a few days, and they recommend not like sweating or anything with that. How do you prevent scarring and infection when microneedling? So this is an image of someone who, developed more scarring from these kind of treatments. And it's very, very important for me, like when creating this product, is I don't want you guys to get any more scars. Okay. I already have enough scars. You don't need to get more scarring by trying to treat scarring. So for me, unfortunately, I have developed unfortunate scarring with improper technique and poor devices. So I got professional done. And on this side, I have, if you look closely, I have holes basically from the technician going way too harsh on my skin. So just be careful of that. If you do professional treatments, I always prefer someone more conservative. Okay. But how to prevent scarring, use a high quality device, make sure the needles are thin. Okay. The gold plated needles are the best. And if you can, avoid numbing cream. And also, it's very, very, very important that you replace your heads. Okay. So people always ask how often to replace the heads. And technically, it should be like after every use if you want to be super, super careful and safe about it. I'm a practical person, and I know in this day and age, not everyone can afford to replace their heads every single time. So in the box, we provide a really good general guideline of how often you should. If you can, I would replace it every time. Okay. If that is not in your budget, make sure you are cleaning the heads thoroughly. So you just put, isopropyl alcohol to the fill line, you can clean it thoroughly. And sometimes I like to take one of those, those like a new soft bristle toothbrush, and sometimes you can kind of, work your way around the needles. But, if you don't replace the heads, not only can the needles get dull, right? Because they're so thin and so fine, they can get dull very easily, but also there's skin debris that just gets attached to it from use, right? So Dr. Sarah Chu, who is a Stanford trained dermatologist, she actually did a non-sponsored review on the product, and she zoomed into the needles 200 times. So you can see how thin and sharp, and the needles come to a point, which is what I wanted with the banisher. But unfortunately, after every use, you're going to get skin debris, and over time that can increase, the risk of infection. You don't want to put old skin when you microneedle. So without a doubt, if you have any doubt about the replacement of the head, I would suggest replacing it. Okay. And also, to prevent infection, definitely do not microneedle over active acne, right? We talked about that, any places that have infection. And then you want to use a serum that is formulated for microneedling. So the Banish vitamin C serum, it comes free in every Banish kit, but it's actually formulated with L-ascorbic acid. L-ascorbic acid is the building block of the RNA of the collagen fiber. So the reason why we include that in the Banish kit is because I want you to maximize your collagen production. So because that is an actual part of the collagen molecule, it'll help get you better results. So we also don't include artificial colors or fragrance in that vitamin C serum. But if you're going to use something afterwards, just make sure it's not too harsh or is going to irritate your skin even more. What results can Banish realistically deliver, and for which skin concerns? Yeah, so I'm going to be completely honest. After the first use of using it, for the acne scars, for me, it looks like the acne scar, the edge of it has kind of blurred, like someone put a little bit of Facetune around that scar. It kind of looks like the scars, like someone ran an iron through it, so a little bit smoother. And you will definitely see a reduction in hyperpigmentation and post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation and the dark marks left over from acne scars. Okay, so number one, it's easiest to treat the discoloration, the hyperpigmentation. Number two, the scars will look ironed out. But with anything, there is always going to be limitations, right, on treating acne scars. So you can see here, here's our customer Kimberly who used the product. So it's not going to erase all your acne scars, okay? So, you know, her skin has greatly improved, but you can still see texture afterwards. And even for me, you know, I still have acne scarring too. So, you know, it's not going to get rid of every single acne scar. And also, sometimes if you have really, really deep acne scars, you might need to see a professional to get subcision. But even then, sometimes it's not treatable. So I think it's important to have realistic result expectations when treating acne scars, because at the end of the day, sometimes the acne scars, like no matter what you do, you're not going to get, you know, completely flawless skin afterwards, right? Like some skin types like mine are just incapable of that. So I think it's important to have realistic expectations. And also, consistency is the most important part. You definitely want to be consistent with your journey, and I'll explain why. So how many sessions are needed to see results? Again, you're going to see results after the first time, but you definitely want to do this consistently. And you know, after I do it, the next day my skin just glows. It looks glowing, it looks radiant. So I recommend, if you have a big event, a photo shoot, a party, to do it about 3 days before, because your skin will be like max, you know, max glowing. But you also want to do Banish and you want to microneedle consistently, because type 3 collagen is going to be replaced by type 1 collagen. So type 1 collagen is a much thicker form of collagen. So your collagen is going to be like changing and evolving because you are microneedling. And even for me, now when I microneedle, I don't even get red. Okay, I don't get red. There's no blood, because my skin is so much thicker, because I've been microneedling for over a decade. Okay, so yeah, I would recommend using Banish either once every other week, or if you're like me and have that really thick type 1 collagen, once a week. And you can even see here, this was in the article Microneedling Advances and Widening Horizons. New collagen continues to be laid down for approximately 3 to 6 months after treatment, leading to lasting improvements in skin thickness. So you can see they took a biopsy of the skin, and this purple is much thicker, right? Because there's new collagen being formed. So I love it. It kind of works over time. And it's very similar to when you build muscle, right? When you build muscle, you get stronger, but also that muscle like will help you like burn more calories, right? So it kind of works over time. Same thing with your skin. Are the results permanent? So yes, the results will be permanent, but it's, you know, it's not like you do it one day and your acne scars just come back all of a sudden, right? But your collagen production also decreases a lot. Okay. So after the age of 20, you produce less collagen. So when you produce less collagen, your acne scars are going to be more noticeable. And also during perimenopause and menopause, when, you know, estrogen declines, you are also going, that rate drastically decreases. Okay. Also, there's other factors like lifestyle, UV exposure decreases collagen a lot, genetics, so that will actually make the acne scars look worse. So you really have to be consistent with microneedling. That's why I always say consistency is key. This is why we also have a subscription program. We sell the packs in a 6 or 8 pack head, because I want you guys to be consistent. Okay. Consistency is the key to all this. All right. Can you microneedle on active acne, sensitive skin, darker skin tones, or during pregnancy? So we have about 10 minutes left of this webinar. So yes, on active acne, make sure to not microneedle over it. Definitely you need to use a stamping tool like the Banisher 3.0. If you have active acne, do not get professional microneedling done, because what they do is they kind of swirl it all over the face and they can spread bacteria. Darker skin tones, yes, anyone can use Banish. I mean, anyone of any skin color can use Banish. I love that, because I'm not somebody who can do lasers. Yeah, it helps improve scars, textures, and hyperpigmentation, and it's very, very low risk of any kind of discoloration. During pregnancy, yes, you can microneedle during pregnancy, but don't use the numbing cream, and just be careful. Make sure everything you're using is pregnancy safe. And then if you have sensitive skin, I would prefer using a shorter needle, so a 0.5 or a 0.25 needle if you have sensitive skin, and seeing how your skin reacts then. Okay, so what are the most common microneedling mistakes to avoid? And again, I think I've said this, but again, reputable device. Okay, it's very, very important that wherever you're getting your device from is from the manufacturer or the company directly. I personally do not trust third-party resellers. For example, I bought batteries from a third-party place one time and it like exploded my daughter's toy. So, you want to buy it straight from the source, okay? And using a good device. Number two is you do not want to go too aggressive. Conservative is better, okay? Again, a lot of people want that shock factor because it looks cool on social media. But if you're like me and prone to scarring, that is going to develop more issues and more scarring on your skin. Using poor quality serums or skincare products that are not formulated for, microneedling afterwards. A lot of products out there, they have a lot of harsh actives or, they have too much fragrance or things that could further irritate your skin. Also, not replacing your heads. Okay, it's very, very important to replace your heads. And if you buy the Banisher head pack, it's less than $20 a head. Okay, so you just want to make sure that when in doubt, you replace your heads. And also making sure you stay out of the sun. And I always prefer a mineral-based sunscreen versus a chemical-based sunscreen. So a mineral-based sunscreen like actually physically blocks the UV rays. Okay, so I prefer a mineral-based sunscreen after microneedling aftercare. Okay, so how does Banisher differ from lasers, chemical peels, and radio frequency microneedling? So this is just a slide about the different types of microneedling devices out there. I took these devices and I stamped a banana, and you can see the Banisher barely left any marks on the banana. The derma roller left a lot of tram track scarring, and the Dr. Pen motorized device, you can just see how thick the needles are. And to answer that question, what is the difference? So lasers are very expensive, a few $1,000s per session. The pro is that it's very powerful. So if you need that really deep collagen remodeling, it might be helpful for that. However, it might not be suitable for darker skin types. You have a risk of hyperpigmentation and even scarring. And there's a huge amount of downtime, 3 to 10 days. Okay. With chemical peels is a really great surface treatment for that glow, especially if you have active acne. It's not going to spread the bacteria, but it's, $150 to $600 a session, and it's not going to mechanically, create collagen in the skin. So it's a good surface treatment, but if you need the collagen building, you need something a little stronger. Radio frequency microneedling, that has been a really hot topic nowadays, costs about $1,000. The FDA has issued a lot of warning letters for radio frequency microneedling because they're going way too deep into the skin and like putting heat deep into the skin, causing burns and also fat loss. So people are, now having to inject filler for all the fat they lost during radio frequency microneedling. So just be careful about that. And then with Banish, starting out, it's $130 a kit. But then when you buy the replacement heads, it can come, it's less than $5 for a full session. It is, the easiest to use, at least risk of further trauma, which is the most important thing for me. But, if you have very, very severe acne scars, you might need to see a professional to do like subcision or other types of lasers. But the downtime for Banish, I would say, is about 12 hours. Okay, so thank you all. Do we have any questions?
How many times would you recommend to use your device?
Yeah, so for the Banish, it actually says on the box when you open it how often you should replace it. So it's very dependent on where you're using it and if you're doing a section or a full face, right? But for the full face, I would replace it, how do I say this? From 0 to 4 times, but do not use it more than 4 times on the full face. But if you're doing like the scalp, you want to replace it every single time because it's much thicker. But if you're doing a certain spot, like a certain targeted spot, maybe you could wait 8 times to replace it, but it's going to be in the inside of the box. Any recommendation for necklines? Yes, the 0.5. Yeah, I'm working on that too. The 0.5 for the necklines. And actually your neck is really, really thin. The skin on your neck is really thin. That's why it shows more. Do you ship to South Africa? That's a great question. I'll get back to you on that. Our team will get back to you. How long to wait after doing a chemical peel? I would definitely wait till your skin is healed, at least a week, if not 2 weeks. I guess it depends on, if it's a surface level chemical peel, if it's like one of those really intense chemical peels, But yeah, wait for your skin to be completely healed. We don't want to further damage the skin barrier for that. Are we going to share this presentation? Yes, we're going to actually put it on our YouTube channel. Okay, well, thank you so much. This recording is going to end very soon. Thank you so much for attending. And I'm going to try to do webinars every month. So if you guys have any topics you want to hear, feel free, to send them over. I love interacting with you, teaching you. I want to be as helpful as I possibly can. So let us know if there's any other topics you want to hear. All right, have a great Friday. Bye.